What if I told you that everything you've been taught about building healthy habits is wrong? That the same old advice, wake up early, hit the gym every day, drink more water, while helpful, just isn't cutting it for most of us? The truth is, the world of self-help is flooded with tips that sound great, but rarely translate into real, lasting change. But here's the twist. Building habits isn't about following rigid routines or endless motivation. It's about something deeper, something more pragmatic, and that's exactly what I'm going to reveal today. In this video, I'm going to break down the real, actionable strategies that don't just sound good on paper, but actually work in the chaos of everyday life. If you're tired of trying the same old methods and failing, stick around. I promise you'll walk away with practical tools that will help you build habits that actually stick. No gimmicks, no fluff, just real results. So, if you're ready to make lasting changes, keep watching, because this is going to change the way you approach habits forever. Number 1. The 5-minute ritual revolution. You know what's crazy? We spend so much of our lives chasing after these grand, complicated routines, thinking that if we just had 45 minutes every morning to meditate, journal, and work out, we'd finally become the perfect version of ourselves. But here's the thing. What if I told you that you don't need all that time? In fact, you might be sabotaging yourself by thinking that a successful habit is only achievable with endless hours and energy. I know. This might sound like one of those too good to be true claims, but trust me on this one. Sometimes less is more, and the trick is simple. Start with 5 minutes. Yes, 5 minutes. Now, before you start thinking, this sounds like some magic bullet nonsense, hear me out. You know the type. You're full of motivation at the start of the week, ready to kick off a new healthy habit, only to find that life gets in the way. Meetings, kids, chores, or just plain exhaustion. And before you know it, those grand plans, they're gone. We've all been there, right? So why not cut out the stress and just give yourself permission to start small? The beauty of the 5-minute ritual is that it doesn't need a big commitment. 5 minutes isn't intimidating, it's doable. It's just long enough to make an impact, but short enough to sneak into even the busiest days. So, what exactly is a 5-minute ritual revolution? Here's the catch. It's about flipping the narrative of "I need a huge time commitment" to "I can do this in 5 minutes." And this isn't about being lazy or skipping the important stuff. It's about starting where you are, with what you've got. Maybe you've been thinking about getting into meditation but can't fathom carving out an hour. Start with 5 minutes of deep breathing. Maybe you want to work on your fitness but the gym feels like a mountain too high to climb. Do 5 minutes of stretching or a quick bodyweight workout. The power is in simplicity. And here's the psychological kicker. Starting small gets you into the habit of starting. It's easier to commit when you know you're not biting off more than you can chew. I'll give you an example. A few months ago, I wanted to get back into reading. But every time I tried, I ended up overwhelmed. I'd pick up a book, read a few pages, and then give up, because I thought I didn't have time to read the whole thing. So I started a 5-minute reading ritual. I set a timer, read for exactly 5 minutes, and then I was done. I couldn't believe how quickly my mindset changed. I started reading more consistently, and soon 5 minutes turned into 15, then 30. That little shift worked because it didn't feel like a mountain I needed to climb every time. It felt like a win, no matter how small. Here's the real kicker. The beauty of this isn't just in the action itself, it's in the mental shift it creates. You're reclaiming your time, your mental space, and your energy. You're giving yourself permission to succeed, even if it's in small steps. You stop waiting for the perfect moment when you have all the time in the world, and you start embracing the power of now. This is about acknowledging that small actions add up and that consistency, not perfection, is the true key to transformation. The 5-minute ritual revolution isn't just about getting things done. It's about mastering the art of starting. So let this be your reminder. You don't need hours, you just need 5 minutes. And that's a win in itself. Because when you start small, you build momentum, and momentum, well, it's unstoppable. Your habits, your growth, your future all start with those first 5 minutes. Your space, your peace, and your dignity reclaimed in a simple, powerful shift. Number 2, the brutally honest accountability partner. You know that feeling when you've set a goal, you're pumped, and then nothing? You tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow never seems to come. Sound familiar? It's like you're constantly stuck in the I'll get to it later loop. Now, what if I told you that the secret to finally kicking that habit, actually sticking to those goals, doesn't come from being more disciplined, but from someone else? Yes, someone who will call you out when you slack off, someone who doesn't care about your excuses. The brutally honest accountability partner. Yes, trust me on this. This isn't about having a cheerleader. It's about having someone who's going to hold your feet to the fire when you need it the most. You know the type, right? We've all had them, those well-meaning friends or family members who say, "You've got this." But let's be real for a second. Sometimes that's the last thing you need to hear, because while their support is great, you still don't take action. What you really need is someone who won't sugarcoat things, someone who will say, "Why are you making excuses? You said you were going to do this, so do it." I know, it sounds harsh, but stay with me here. This isn't about negativity. It's about getting real and cutting through the fluff. Here's the twist. This brutal honesty can actually be a game changer. Why? Because we all know we're our own worst enemies when it comes to holding ourselves accountable. When it's just you and your thoughts, it's easy to rationalize, "It's not that big of a deal," or "I'll catch up tomorrow." But when someone else calls you out, it's a whole different ballgame. It's the mental nudge you need to stay focused. The beauty of this strategy is that it taps into something deeper, your desire to not let others down. It's a psychological trick we all know too well. You won't want to be the person who constantly drops the ball, right? So you push yourself harder, do the work, and ultimately succeed. I'll give you a real-life example. A couple of months ago, I had set a personal goal to exercise more consistently. I started strong, but as usual, the excuses piled up. That's when my friend, let's call her Sarah, stepped in. She knew my goal and wasn't going to let me slide. One morning, I texted her a list of reasons why I couldn't make it to the gym. I was busy, I was tired, you name it. And she texted me right back, "This isn't going to work if you keep making excuses. I thought you were serious about this." Boom. I'm not going to lie, I felt a little called out. But instead of getting defensive, I got my shoes on. That brutal honesty was exactly what I needed to push past the usual mental barriers. I went to the gym, and you know what? I felt so much better afterward, not just physically, but mentally. Having someone who doesn't back down, who doesn't let you get away with your own nonsense, can push you to do things you wouldn't do otherwise. Now, let's talk about the emotional benefits of this. This isn't just about checking boxes on a to-do list. It's about reclaiming your power. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. You've got dreams, and you deserve to follow through with them. No more excuses. An accountability partner who's brutally honest is a reflection of your self-respect. They won't let you hide from your own potential. When you start honoring your word, not just to others but to yourself, it creates a ripple effect. You begin to believe in yourself more. You start taking your goals seriously. And that's where the magic happens. So here's your takeaway. Don't shy away from the hard truths. Find that brutally honest accountability partner. Someone who will challenge you, not just cheer you on. Because when you let go of the fluff, you're left with the real stuff. The grit, the grind, the strength to push through. Your goals, they'll be within reach. Your success, inevitable. Because the only thing standing between you and your future is the truth, and someone who's not afraid to give it to you. Your space, your peace, and your dignity worth the brutal honesty. Number 3, the 3-day shock therapy. Here's a thought. What if you could change something in just 3 days? Sounds too good to be true, right? But hear me out. You might be thinking, I've tried everything to kick my bad habits or build new ones and nothing works. Well, what if I told you that all it takes is 3 days to flip the script? Yes, 3 days. It's not about magically transforming overnight, but it's about creating a powerful shift in your mind and body that can lead to real, lasting change. It's what I like to call the 3-day shock therapy. Trust me on this one. Now, we've all been there, right? You start with the best intentions. You make a goal, set a plan, and tell yourself, this time, it's going to be different. But after a few days, life gets in the way. The motivation fades, and the old habits creep back in. You know the type. Maybe it's the New Year's resolution that lasts a week, or the fitness plan you abandon halfway through. It's frustrating because you're trying, but somehow you're stuck in a loop of starting over, again and again. But what if the secret to breaking free wasn't about slowly building up habits over time, but about hitting the reset button, fast and hard, for just 3 days? Here's the twist. The 3-day shock therapy isn't about perfection or long-term commitment. It's about forcing your brain and body to react to something intense, something that'll snap you out of autopilot. Think of it like a detox for your habits. It's the kind of thing that's going to push you past the excuses, the doubt, and the comfort zone. The idea is simple. For 3 days, you commit to something radical, something that'll push your limits. Maybe it's a strict diet, a daily workout routine, or getting up an hour earlier than usual. Whatever it is, it's about making a bold shift that gives your body and mind a shock to the system. Why 3 days? Because it's long enough to make a difference, but short enough for you to see real results without feeling overwhelmed. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was stuck in a cycle of late-night work sessions, eating junk and barely sleeping. I knew I needed to make a change, but the idea of overhauling everything seemed impossible. So, I decided to try this 3-day shock therapy. For 3 days, I committed to no late-night work, eating clean, and getting 8 hours of sleep. Sounds simple, right? But trust me, it was brutal. The first day felt like I was trying to fight my own body. I was cranky, unproductive, and questioning my decision. By the second day, though, something shifted. My body started adjusting. I felt clearer, less stressed, and even had more energy. By the third day, I couldn't believe the difference. I was more focused, more productive, and honestly, I didn't want to go back to my old habits. That 3-day shock was just enough to break me out of my routine and set me up for success. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to show me what was possible. Here's the thing. The 3-day shock therapy isn't just about physical changes. It's about mental empowerment. It's about taking control, proving to yourself that you can push through discomfort, and realizing that a little disruption can bring massive clarity. This strategy is a reminder that you don't have to wait for the perfect moment to make a change. You don't have to spend weeks prepping for it. Sometimes, all you need is a shock to your system. It's not about perfection, it's about taking the leap. It's about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity by showing yourself what you're capable of in just 3 days. So here's your takeaway. The next time you feel stuck or overwhelmed, consider the 3-day shock therapy. It doesn't have to be drastic. It just has to be intentional. For 3 days, do something bold, something different. You'll be amazed at how much can change when you commit to doing it right now. Your goals, your habits, and your future. They're all waiting for you to make that decision, because in just 3 days, you can make a change that feels huge. Your space, your peace, and your dignity taken back in a powerful, transformative way. Number 4. The fail fast philosophy. What if I told you that failing could be the best thing you ever do? Sounds counterintuitive, right? But here's the truth. The fail fast philosophy might just be the game changer you need. Now, I know what you're thinking. Failing is never the goal, right? Yes, trust me on this. It's not about celebrating failure for the sake of it, but about using failure as a tool to get you closer to success faster. It's about letting go of the fear of failure and embracing the idea that failing early, failing fast, and learning from it will ultimately get you to where you want to be. But how does that work in real life? We've all been there, haven't we? You have a big idea or goal, and it feels like the perfect plan. You start with so much hope and excitement, only to be held back by the fear of messing up. What if it doesn't work? What if people judge me? So you overthink, plan for every possible scenario, and delay starting. I've been in that exact spot, 1,000,000 times. The frustration of putting off something you know you should do, just because you're scared of not getting it perfect. It's exhausting. You keep spinning your wheels, hoping for the perfect moment, and in the meantime, you never get anything done. Sound familiar? Here's where the fail-fast philosophy comes in. It's all about taking action and testing your ideas quickly. No more waiting around for the perfect time or the perfect plan. You try something, learn from it, tweak it, and move on. This mindset encourages you to launch early, make mistakes, and fail faster so you can improve faster. Why? Because every failure teaches you something valuable. It's a shortcut to success. When you fail fast, you avoid wasting time stuck in analysis paralysis. You learn quickly what works and what doesn't, so you can adjust, keep going, and get better at whatever you're doing. It's not about being reckless. It's about being strategic in how you learn. Let me share a personal story with you. A while back, I was working on a project for my YouTube channel. I had this grand idea of creating a super professional, polished video with all the bells and whistles. I spent weeks planning and overthinking every detail, worried about every possible mistake. It wasn't until I decided to just dive in, ditch the perfectionism and create a rough version of the video, that I learned what actually worked. The first video wasn't great, but it wasn't a failure either. It taught me more about what my audience wanted and what I could do better. And guess what? By the time I created the second one, I had already improved tenfold. That early failure, it was a stepping stone, not a roadblock. Now, think about this. How much time have you spent trying to avoid failure? How much energy have you poured into making things perfect, only to be paralyzed by the fear of it going wrong? What if instead of fearing failure, you leaned into it, knowing it's going to be your greatest teacher? This philosophy is about reclaiming your confidence and your energy. It's about saying, I don't have to get everything right the first time, but I'm going to keep moving forward and learning. So, here's the powerful truth. Failing fast doesn't mean you're failing at life. It means you're succeeding faster than most people ever will. Every time you try and fall short, you're gaining the knowledge you need to get one step closer to the finish line. It's about progress, not perfection. It's about taking risks, embracing the bumps in the road, and using them to your advantage. When you shift your mindset to fail fast, you start to see every setback as a setup for the next, better attempt. And with that kind of mentality, success is inevitable. Your space, your peace, and your dignity They're all wrapped up in the freedom to act without fear. So go ahead, fail fast, learn faster. Keep moving. Number 5. The habit blackmail technique. Imagine being able to get yourself to do things you've been procrastinating on, without feeling like you're dragging your feet every step of the way. Sounds too good to be true? Well, I promise you, it's not. Welcome to the habit blackmail technique, a strategy so sneaky it'll have you wondering why you didn't think of it sooner. Now, before you dismiss it as something too underhanded, hear me out. This isn't about manipulating yourself into doing something you hate. It's about turning your own mind into your most persuasive ally. We've all been there. You've made a commitment to build a healthy habit, and then, boom, life happens. Maybe you plan to exercise every day, or finally start writing that book, but somehow days slip by without progress. You tell yourself, tomorrow for sure, only to realize that tomorrow never really comes. You know the type. You have a list of goals, but the motivation just isn't there. It's frustrating. You wonder why you can't seem to follow through, and that feeling of self-doubt starts creeping in. Here's where the habit blackmail technique comes into play. Instead of relying on willpower or motivation, this technique uses a simple principle. Make yourself pay a small price for not sticking to your commitment. Think of it like a system of penalties. The idea is, every time you break your promise to yourself, you punish yourself with something you dislike, whether it's a small financial penalty or doing an extra chore around the house. Why does this work? Because our brains are wired to avoid loss. The fear of losing something, even if it's just a few bucks or an extra 15 minutes of work, is a powerful motivator. It's like turning your own laziness against itself. I tried this when I was struggling to stick to a new morning routine. I set up a rule that if I didn't get up at 5 a.m. for 3 consecutive days, I'd have to donate $10 to a cause I didn't particularly care for. Trust me, the thought of giving money to something I didn't support made me jump out of bed faster than any alarm clock ever could. The first couple of mornings, I wasn't convinced. I thought, is this really going to work? But by day 3, I was awake before my alarm, and I started to feel the satisfaction of knowing that I had created a system that was finally working for me. The penalties didn't feel like a punishment. They felt like an incentive to keep my commitment to myself. This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about using that natural human instinct to avoid discomfort as a way to propel yourself forward. By leveraging consequences, you're teaching yourself that breaking promises to yourself has a real price. The more you stick to your goals, the less you'll need to rely on this technique. But in the beginning, it's a surefire way to break the cycle of procrastination and start building those habits. Think about it. We often give so much attention to external accountability, like asking friends to check on us, but we don't hold ourselves to the same level of seriousness. The habit blackmail technique shifts that. It forces you to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. You're making a commitment to yourself that you will enforce. That's empowering. Every time you stay true to your word, it builds self-respect and confidence. You deserve to reclaim your time, your goals, and your future. By using the habit blackmail technique, you're not just creating good habits, you're reinforcing the most important relationship, the one with yourself. Every small success builds on the next. Soon, those penalties won't be needed anymore because you'll have developed the habit of following through, and that's where real change happens. Your space, your peace, and your dignity, they all start with honoring your commitments. So, the next time you find yourself tempted to hit the snooze button or put something off, remember, if you don't follow through, you've just made yourself the one paying the price. Take control. Your future self will thank you. Number 6, the reward-only system. What if I told you that the key to building habits you actually stick to is not in the struggle, the discipline, or the endless grind? No, it's in the rewards. Yes, you heard that right. The trick to forming habits and achieving your goals isn't about punishing yourself into progress, it's about rewarding yourself into success. Now, I know you might be skeptical. You're thinking, if it were that easy, everyone would be crushing their goals. But trust me, this isn't about shortcuts, it's about making your brain work for you, not against you. Let's be real. We've all tried to get on track with a goal, whether it's working out, eating healthier, or reading more, and it just doesn't seem to stick. You know the type. You start off strong, but by the second week it feels like a chore. You tell yourself you'll get back to it tomorrow, and then tomorrow becomes a week from now. Why does this happen? It's simple. Your brain doesn't get excited about effort and discomfort, but it does get excited about rewards. Here's the genius part. The reward-only system flips the script. Instead of focusing on all the hard work you have to do to achieve a goal, you center everything around the reward you get for doing it. Here's how it works. Each time you complete a task, whether it's hitting the gym, writing a page in your book, or even just crossing an item off your to-do list, you reward yourself with something that brings you joy. It could be a treat, a break, or even something as simple as a moment of relaxation. And guess what? Over time, your brain starts associating the action with the pleasure of the reward, making you want to repeat the behavior. You're literally training yourself to love the process. I'll give you a real-life example. A few months ago, I struggled to stick to a morning routine. I wanted to get up earlier, exercise, and start the day on a productive note, but the motivation just wasn't there. Then I decided to apply the reward-only system. Here's how it went. For every morning I managed to wake up at 5 a.m. and complete my workout, I rewarded myself with a delicious coffee from my favorite cafe. The first time I did it, I wasn't sure it would work. But after a couple of days, I realized I was actually excited to wake up early. Not because of the workout, but because I was looking forward to that coffee. Slowly, the habit became a part of my routine. Now, I'm not suggesting this method will work instantly. It's a process, but a process that works. The idea is that your brain will begin to crave the reward, making the action itself more appealing. Over time, you won't need the reward as much because you'll enjoy the action itself, but the rewards keep things fresh and motivating. You're turning the habit-building process into something positive and fun instead of a never-ending slog. So, let's talk about the emotional side of this. We often think that building good habits requires some level of sacrifice or suffering. But the reward-only system flips that narrative. It's about creating a positive emotional association with the things you want to do. It's about reclaiming your time and energy in a way that feels empowering and enjoyable. You deserve to celebrate every win, no matter how small. By rewarding yourself, you're acknowledging your hard work and building a mindset of success. At the end of the day, life isn't about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's about aligning your goals with what makes you feel good. By using the reward-only system, you're not just building habits. You're making your future self thank you every single day. You deserve your space, your peace, and your dignity. So start rewarding yourself and watch your goals come to life, one small pleasure at a time. Number 7, the habit split. What if I told you the secret to building lasting habits isn't about doing them all at once? You might be thinking, wait, isn't that the whole point of building habits? To dive in head first and make it stick? Well, yes and no. Trust me on this one. There's a different approach, one that might sound a bit unconventional at first, but it works like a charm. It's called the habit split, and it's all about breaking your habit into smaller, more manageable chunks, so your brain can actually enjoy the process instead of dreading it. Think about it. We've all been there. You set a goal, maybe it's exercising, learning a new skill, or reading more books, and you start with all the enthusiasm in the world. But after a few days, that motivation starts to fade. The idea of working out for an hour feels like a chore, reading for 30 minutes becomes a struggle, and you wonder why it's so hard to stick with it. Sound familiar? I'm willing to bet you've experienced that all-or-nothing mentality, where you go big at first and then crash hard. It's like setting yourself up for failure, and honestly, we've all fallen into that trap. Now, imagine if you took that big habit and split it into smaller, bite-sized pieces. Instead of committing to an hour-long workout, how about starting with 10 minutes? Instead of reading 30 pages, try 10. The habit split is all about giving yourself permission to start small, so small in fact that it feels almost too easy to fail. But here's the twist. That's the point. By breaking things down, you make it so manageable that your brain doesn't freak out at the thought of the task. And trust me, when you experience success, even in tiny doses, your brain starts craving more. Let me give you an example from my own life. I was struggling to build a reading habit. I wanted to read more books, but sitting down for an hour of reading just felt like too much. So, I decided to use the habit split. I told myself, let's just read 5 pages today. That's it. 5 pages. I know it sounds ridiculously small, but that's exactly what made it work. I'd sit down, read my 5 pages, and feel like I'd accomplished something. And guess what? More often than not, I'd end up reading 10, 15, or even 20 pages. The key was that small, easy commitment to get started. Slowly, my reading habit grew without me forcing it. So why does this work? It's simple psychology. Our brains are wired to seek out rewards, and starting small gives us that instant gratification. You see, when we take on huge tasks, our brain feels overwhelmed and stressed. But when we break things down into smaller steps, we feel more in control, and that sense of accomplishment builds momentum. You're creating positive reinforcement for yourself. You're telling your brain, hey, I did it. I can do it again. Here's the emotional part. You're reclaiming your confidence, your self-respect, and your peace. By splitting your habits into manageable pieces, you're showing yourself kindness instead of pressure. You're proving that progress doesn't have to look like a sprint. It can be a steady, consistent pace. So often we feel like we're failing because we're not going big enough, fast enough. But here's the thing. Small wins add up, and it's the small wins that actually stick. So let's wrap this up. You don't need to commit to hours of effort every day. You don't need to feel guilty for taking it slow. By using the habit split, you're taking control of your success, one small step at a time. And remember, it's not about how fast you get there. It's about how consistently you show up for yourself. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are worth it. Start small, stay consistent, and let those habits grow. Number 8, the don't overthink it method. Have you ever found yourself staring at a decision for way too long, wondering if you're making the right choice, and then, after all that thinking, still not making a move? Yeah, we've all been there. You know the type. The person who sits there, trapped in their own thoughts, paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong decision. But what if I told you that the secret to breaking free from that overthinking trap is to simply not overthink it? Yes, trust me on this one. I know it sounds like I'm oversimplifying things, but hear me out. Think about it. How many times have you spent hours weighing options, running through every possible scenario, trying to predict every outcome, only to end up more confused than when you started? We've all been there, right? We make something simple feel like a monumental decision, whether it's picking a restaurant, choosing a project to focus on, or deciding which book to read. The overthinking takes over. And that's where we go wrong. We start building mountains out of molehills, making the smallest choices feel like life or death situations. So, what's the answer? The don't overthink it method. The next time you catch yourself spiraling into the abyss of indecision, pause for a moment and give yourself permission to stop thinking so hard. Just pick something and go with it. Let me tell you why this works. Overthinking is a way of our brain trying to protect us from making mistakes, but it often does the opposite. Instead of preventing mistakes, it keeps us stuck in a loop, afraid to move forward. The beauty of not overthinking is that you're taking action, and action is what pushes you out of the mental hamster wheel and into real progress. I'll share a personal story here. Not long ago, I had to choose between two similar projects. One was familiar, something I'd done before, and the other was new, but exciting. I spent days overanalyzing, going back and forth, convinced that whichever decision I made would lead to either success or failure. I was stuck. Then, I finally decided to apply the don't overthink it method. Instead of endlessly thinking about which would be the better choice, I picked the new project, knowing I'd figure it out as I went. And you know what happened? I learned, I grew, and I had a blast doing it. I moved forward without the baggage of endless deliberation. It was freeing. Here's the emotional side of it. We often overthink because we fear making the wrong choice. We're worried about looking foolish or failing. But here's the truth. Every time we don't make a decision, we miss out on the opportunity to learn and grow. This is about reclaiming your freedom. Freedom from doubt, from paralysis, from fear of messing up. By applying the don't overthink it method, you're giving yourself permission to act, to trust yourself, and to take risks. You're choosing your own peace over the noise of unnecessary worry. So, next time you're stuck in a mental loop, remember, just pick something. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be forever, but it does have to be now. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are worth more than a few minutes of overthinking. Take the leap, make the choice, and trust yourself. The more you practice this, the more you'll realize that sometimes not overthinking is the best decision you can make. Number 9. The break the rules approach. Have you ever been told to follow the rules or stick to the plan, only to realize you're stuck in a cycle of doing what everyone else is doing, and it's just not working for you? It's like being in a car following the GPS, but every turn leads you to a dead end. Now, what if I told you that the secret to truly unlocking your potential is not just following the rules, but breaking them? Yes, trust me on this one. I know it sounds a little rebellious, but hear me out. We've all faced the pressure to conform, to fit into a mold, or to follow what's tried and true. Whether it's in your career, your personal life, or even in your creative projects, the rules can feel suffocating. You know the type. Someone who says, "This is the way it's always been done," or "You have to do it this way." And for a while, maybe you go along with it. You follow the formula, tick the boxes, and expect success to follow. But here's the catch. Success doesn't always follow the formula. Sometimes it's about breaking free from the script and creating your own path. That's where the break the rules approach comes in. It's not about throwing all caution to the wind or being reckless. It's about recognizing that the rules aren't set in stone. They're guidelines, and sometimes those guidelines need to be bent or even shattered to get the results you really want. The reason this works is simple. Most of the time, the rules we follow are based on what has worked for other people in other situations. But you're not like everyone else. You've got your own vision, your own strengths, and your own circumstances, and that's where you've got the power to do things differently. Let me give you a personal example. A few years ago, I was working on a project where I was told to follow a very specific process. Everyone around me was sticking to the same steps, the same timeline, and the same approach. But something just didn't feel right. I had this wild idea that broke all the rules of the project. Something unconventional that had never been done before. At first, I hesitated. I thought, what if I mess it all up? But then, I decided to trust my gut. I broke the rules, and guess what? The project turned out better than anyone expected. It wasn't perfect, but it was uniquely mine, and that made all the difference. By breaking the rules, I found a path that felt right for me, and I reaped the rewards. Now here's the emotional side of it. We've all been conditioned to fear failure, to fear that we might look foolish if we stray from the path. But breaking the rules doesn't mean you're irresponsible or reckless. It means you're taking ownership of your journey. It's about reclaiming your space, your freedom, and your creativity. It's about saying, I'm going to try something new, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll learn from it and move on. This is your chance to trust yourself and your instincts without constantly looking over your shoulder at what others are doing. So the next time you feel boxed in, remember this. Rules are meant to be guidelines, not chains. Your ideas, your projects, your life, they all deserve to be free from unnecessary limitations. By breaking the rules, you're not being reckless. You're being bold, innovative, and most importantly, authentic. And trust me, there's nothing more empowering than that. You've got this. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are yours to create. Break the rules and take control of your journey. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end of the video. I truly hope you found these insights helpful and that they give you a fresh perspective on building habits that actually last. If you found this video valuable, please hit that like button. It really helps. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more content like this, where we dive deep into practical solutions for living a healthier, more fulfilling life. If you know someone who could benefit from this, be sure to share it with them. It's all about creating a community that supports each other. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let me know how you're tackling your own habit-building journey. What's worked for you? What challenges have you faced? Let's start a conversation and learn from each other. Remember, building healthy habits isn't about perfection. It's about progress, no matter how small. So keep going, stay consistent, and remember, your best self is always within reach. Until next time.